But we are going to look now ahead to the weekend's games, and it is Super Saturday this weekend. All games taking place on the Saturday, March 19th. Yeah. And it opens, as is traditional, with the Italian game. It's going to be sort of the dead rubber match, the bottom of the table clash between Wales and Italy in Cardiff, kicking off at 2:15. Andrew Brace has taken the game from the referee, with Carly and Trainini from France on the sidelines, and Joy Neville of the RFU in the TMO box.
There you go. Total dead rubber in the context of the tournament. I mean, it's not even really a wooden spoon comp because Wales are on 6, so Italy have already sewn that one up.
They have.
There is a bit of colour from a Welsh point of view. Obviously, Alan Wynne-Jones, we were touting last week, he was back in, and suddenly their line-out is picking off French line-outs. But now he's back in another sense, in that he's going to come back for yet another milestone for them.
I'm surprised by that, I must say, but he's back in. It's 150 test appearances for the great Alan Wynne-Jones, which in this era, in any era,
and in lock,
just extraordinary stuff. I was seeing some stats on him that he was the best tackler in World Rugby history. He's made more tackles than anybody, which is unsurprising.
That's what happens when you spend 149 games at lock.
Someone was pointing out, I think a couple of Welsh people, it was kind of doing the rounds on Welsh Twitter, that actually Alan Wynne-Jones's career milestones have gone pretty badly. His first cap was a 27-25 loss to Argentina. His 50th cap was a defeat to England in a World Cup warm-up. His 100th cap was a away defeat to New Zealand. His 200th Ospreys cap was a loss to Leinster. When he got the Welsh cap record, he lost to New Zealand at the World Cup. When he got the international cap record, with including his Lions appearances, he lost a 14-10 at home against Scotland. In his first match as the Lions tour captain, he was seriously injured after 8 minutes. And when he got the international cap record for one team, that was just last autumn, they had that bad loss against the All Blacks as well. So he hasn't had many milestone days go his way.
That's true. Not many hoping some end up like that. Hopefully he can amend that here on 150 and pull up a good one. That's certainly what they'll be hoping for, because it would be very shocking precedent if this Italy game ultimately went against them as well. But good luck to Alan Wynne-Jones. Dan Biggar as well is going to pull up the century.
Century for Wales, that's awesome from Dan Biggar. What a servant he's been. And who leads them out? I mean,
this is interesting. Maybe you send both of them out, but I don't know who's technically captain. I don't know.
Alan Wynne will probably be captain, but I'd say the two of them will run out together to raucous applause.
Absolutely, two legends of Welsh rugby for sure, and with a bit more to give, it seems, to the red jersey. For really, this game is more just about putting something together on the back of a positive performance, a rare enough positive showing against one of these big guns in the Six Nations, and having a cut at this Wales team that have been stuttering a little bit, seeing if that defensive cohesion can cause Wales some problems, because Wales have been struggling on the offensive end themselves. So there's little tactical stuff that you can get into and try and be competitive for at least some of this match.
They'll fancy their foundations as giving them a chance to have a cut for 60 minutes at least, and just keep going moment by moment. And that definitely is the goal for Italy. We'd love to see them get a point on the board of any kind.
It's true.
In
some kind of point.
Table.
4 tries is my dream point for them. But I'm still dreaming. I was close last week.
Yeah, indeed. We are going to look at the game from the point of view of each team, starting with the hosts, which of course is Wales. Obviously, they've shown their class in moments throughout this year's campaign, but it was always going to be a challenge after the start in Dublin, and they just haven't been able to accrue the necessary points in some big games, despite playing pretty well.
It's been a disappointment, but definitely not doom and gloom from a Welsh campaign point of view. Like obviously title defences, you want to be in the mix towards the end, and it's not going to happen. But they were probably aware of that after that opening weekend in Dublin, and just after like the autumn that was and the summer that was. They were struggling for form and pretty severely going into that, and they found a team that were pretty much in form and got their challenge pretty scuppered early doors. But since then they've grown throughout this competition, and they're undoubtedly in a better, stronger position now than they were when they ended 2021. And they're going to look to try and keep that momentum a bit with a win against Italy, and a home win for the fans.
And a big tour to come away in South Africa.
Exactly.
Not going to be easy.
Doesn't make it easier, but you want to carry a little bit of form and a little bit of positivity into that. So some nice tries here would certainly be on the cards for that.
100%. They have named their team Wales. It was rife with changes, as we mentioned. So unfortunately Ryan Elias had to make way, so Dowie Lake comes in at hooker. They've stuck with Gareth Thomas and Dylan Lewis as the other two props, with Wyn Jones to come on. Adam Beard and Alan Wyn Jones reunite as second row partners. Unfortunately that means that Will Rowlands drops to the bench after his best ever performance in a Wales jersey.
That's true.
But a bit of strength off the bench is no bad thing, and they maintain that back row of Seb Davies, Josh Navidi and Tulupi Faletau, which was very, very impressive.
Looks like their form back row at the minute for sure.
Then this is where it gets interesting. There's changes in the back line. No Liam Williams, crucially.
Did he take a knock, or is he on the bench?
He's not on the bench, so I imagine he took possibly a knock of some kind. Alright. They've also given Garrett Davis the nod with Dan Biggar. They've brought Willis Halaholo in at 12 instead of Jay Davis. With Owen Watkin at 13. They've got Reece Samet back in instead of Cuthbert, with Josh Adams on the wings, and Johnny McNichol comes in at fullback.
It's still a good, as we were saying at the height of the tournament, like with this Wales squad, you can't really name a poor back line out of the guys in the squad. You can do any kind of mix and still make a very effective one.
Some promising impact on the bench between Wyn Jones, Will Rowlands, Ross Moriarty, Kieran Hardy and Nick Tompkins.
There's actually Callum Sheedy can run a bit of offense against some tired bodies as well, try and get them going. No, it's definitely good quality. I suspect the change at halfback was forced because obviously poor
Thomas
Williams got cracked by a Dante shin with his head on the wrong side of a contact against that bulldozer is not going to end well for a halfback, so maybe he's not available to select. But again, Wales at halfback, you can't really go too much wrong. It's a kind of a horses, not really horses for courses, they're kind of all similar mould of players, and they'll try and provide tempo off the base.
Well, one thing that I think is interesting about this side is that it is not a side that appears to be built to do what Wales have been doing, which is playing a very kick-heavy approach to position themselves in the red zone, but basically plotting their way around the field using the likes of Liam Williams, using Thomas Williams at times, and of course Dan Biggar to work their way downfield, win the kicking exchanges, and then ultimately win the territory battle.
So we'll see only a little bit of this, but I'd say they're going to try and take on this Italian offense.
Well, it looks like it. I mean, Johnny McNichol for Liam Williams is not a like for like. It's a running team. Willis Halaholo as well. It seems like much more like a team that wants to run the ball. Garrett Davis wants to run the ball, but then that raises the question of like, their offense hasn't been that effective, and they are up against a defense that has been pretty damn good effective, and very good at turning over the ball.
I think they're going to make the argument, and maybe they have a case here, and maybe they're right, that there's levels to this game, and that their offense ain't that bad. It's just they're running into Sean Edwards, France, and Ireland's defence, and actually Italy, while being much improved, might struggle with our offense. That's certainly what it reads to me, because they picked that team very early in the week as well, and it reads to me like they're gonna
have to bring a hard edge to what they're doing in attack, like
and accuracy to the offensive clean out as well. They've struggled with the offensive clean out too often, and guys like Lamaro will get in there and will get a poacher
and
too.
Lucchesi, this has been constant from the Italians in every game, and they've maintained their width really well, but because they're pretty well spaced, that does leave a seam between players, and that's where you want to see guys like Faletau or Willis Halaholo picking lines off the distributing player, cutting hard angles through the defence to kind of sit them down, and then you can work with quick ball off that. But they've missed that, to be honest, this year. They've been a little lateral, and hence their passing game hasn't really worked at all. And they've really leaned on their kicking game to gain any kind of offensive purchase. You need to have that kind of hard line hitting, and you think that their centres that they've picked, Watkin and Halaholo, are well placed to give you that cutting against the grain kind of just running straight and winning contacts, which then can recycle and get good ball and leave Italy a little more vulnerable if they're slow to fold. That's the kind of decisions you want to see them making.
And you want to see guys like Faletau getting his hands in the tram lines with the wide Samet out wide.
And maybe with Alan Wyn Jones back in the team, maybe you might see Adam Beard revert
a little bit further out,
where he was a little more out wide. You've got Seb Davis in at 6, who can also kind of do that pivot position, but you want to see them stretch the field but have the capacity to sit the Italians down and truck it up effectively when they need to, while maintaining good tempo and rhythm. I've yet to see Wales effectively run the ball from the midfield. It'll take a decent set piece to do it.
It'll take proactivity to do it. They haven't looked to do it tactically. They haven't really been looking to do it.
They look like they've picked a team that's designed to do it.
So exciting times for the home fans on the final day to try and rack up a score and do a bit of leapfrogging on the table to try and salvage something from the season as well. Defensively, that's one area they should feel confident. Albeit with the changes, their defensive system has looked very good against top level offenses coming to town, and they've managed to create these kind of scrappy contests that are a little low scoring, predominantly bar week one.
They've been very good at not giving up the catastrophic play. Like, even if they concede a line break, their scramble has been pretty good. They've been very good at getting back in shape.
Even down to like that Liam Williams sin binning that ended up only being the 3 points that it could have been the 7, and it's just like, not everyone gets that right. Sometimes you see someone put a big paw out and you're like, you're an idiot, what are you doing? Luke Cowan-Dickey on week one, where you're like, what are you doing, front rower? But Liam Williams and Wales just have a way about them where it's like, yes, that's a thoroughly illegal, thoroughly cynical, somewhat scummy play. God, I'm screaming at the TV, but I can also see that it's quite a clever play, because that was a try and they ended up picking 3, and then the 10 minutes elapsed and it's like, well, now it's vindicated, isn't it? It's a smart play. God damn, why is it a smart play?
Yeah, indeed. And their defence has been excellent at that, slowing the ball when they need to, finding turnovers when they need to, staying connected. They've had the 2 13s playing as 13s on either end of the field, which has worked really well. And again, that's probably where they're going to look to soak up the Italians, force them on the inside,
and make them flounder, to create turnovers, create set pieces. And you like, their line, it looked so much better last week, and now it's another week, and you have Alan Wynne-Jones that launching off that set piece should be good
and attacking Italy there. I mean, Italy against Scotland, they had excellent set piece that really did give them a great base to start from. Wales will be looking to get after them in that area. Their scrum has been deceptively good all year. It didn't struggle against France particularly. They gave Ireland, had a right cut at Ireland. They didn't struggle against England. And Garrett Thomas and Wynne-Jones, both of them very good scrummagers. It'll be Thomas to start here, but if they can get after Italy in that area and steal some Italian ball, that will take what little offensive progress Italy have made completely away from them.
Perhaps a bit of confidence and a bit of energy. If they can couple that with a few well taken scores, then the fact that it's week 5 or whatever, like round 5, and just after their very emotional performance, that's normally where you do see Italy wilt, and Wales just want to create the position to allow that to happen.
Marry that with the likes of Hardy and Tompkins to bring in, and you think that it's a good position for Wales if they can just stick to their processes, play the same defense, play the same set piece game that they've been playing, and add a little something on offense. They'll be happy with their return. That's
exactly right. From Italy's point of view, it, like as we were highlighting, their best showing of the year came last weekend. So it's like 3 tries, a 2-1 debut for an exciting youngster, a lot more on the offense, a lot more even on the defense. Just lots of pictures that they can now work from of like, this is what we want to do, this is what we want to have happen, and a few instances of Scotland breaking away going, this is absolutely still what we don't want to have happen. So from a coach's point of view, there's a lot of good messages you can get out there. It's going to be just tough to, like, there's no gap week, you want to rise to the emotional pitch of it. You're going away, you're not in Rome, you're in Cardiff now, and it's going to be a large part of the battle for Italy is going to be arriving to the pitch of the battle here.
I don't disagree. I do think that they've more reason to be confident than they've had in quite a while.
True.
They put some consistent performances together in certain areas of the game.
On the defensive end, to be honest.
On the defensive end is exactly right. And listen, Wales's attack hasn't been flowing that well this year. They have been leaning on a kicking game, and they have picked a team.
9 points last week.
And they have picked a team that's going to run the ball. Italy need to be there to teach them, hey, it's not that simple. You can't just all of a sudden start playing offense because it's Italy. We're actually not going to let you do that. And if you are sloppy, if you're ineffective, if you're not picking hard lines and cutting through us, we're going to eat you alive. We're going to beat you 1-on-1. You're not going to get away from us. And then we're going to get our jacklers in and turn over the ball, which is going to generate set pieces for us up the field, and that is where we've been able to launch on offense for the first time all year last week. So I think the game plan is pretty right there for Italy. It's go after this Welsh offense, try and generate some turnovers, and maybe catch them playing with a bit of hubris if they're going to be running the ball from everywhere.
That's exactly it. You want to stifle that early on by continuing, like Lamara leads from the front with that, but the dogged jackling, the making a scrap of every breakdown, and therefore slowing the ball, staying connected on the defense, putting in some big shots when they're there to be that when someone's there to be hit and a bit upright, drop the shoulder, put it in, which they've been doing very proactively and very well. And then suddenly the doubts go. If you do unstick a few offloads or force a few scrums from a good shot, and then there's a murmur around Cardiff as opposed to kind of the chorus of song that can reverberate around, and that's what you want to create as an atmosphere to play in. If you're an Italian here, it is easier said than done, because it is going to be tough. They know they're going to be up against it, the number one thing that Crowley's managed to succeed in changing is just that attitude. So you'd want to see, particularly on defence, you'd want to see that attitude even through the week 5, because that would be market improvement if we can see them rise to the pitch after like a long campaign for a team like this, where you are still getting a little beat up and beaten anyway by all these teams. You'd still want to see them be there to the pitch of the game in round 5, which has not always been the case.
No, you want to see them make their tackles, be effective defensively, as we've said, but then you also want to see them be effective offensively. And the key to this, more than anything last week, was a really solid set piece.
Foundations
they were
again.
6 from 6 on their own scrums. They were 11 from 12 on their own lineouts, and actually managed to turn over 3 of Scotland's.
Yeah,
so they
were
like
in the first half, particularly in the first quarter as well. They were the discipline side. They were edging the penalty count because Scotland were being a bit impatient, ill-disciplined, and ending on the wrong side of the ref's whistle, where Italy were doing none of that. They weren't rushing up to be quick to be offside. They weren't competing at breakdowns that were dead. Being patient and calm as well as proactive at that set piece and at that breakdown is step one.
Exactly. And you look at the try last week that they found when they found space on the edge. I'm not sure if it was Padavani who got the dot down, but the one off the scrum where Brayley broke blind, found Bruno. And then
it was a loop of Padavani back to Brayley, to Bruno, and then back inside. Yeah, lovely set piece.
Really well worked. Clever little deceptive loop. You did Brayley getting the second touch, caught the Scottish defence unawares. Little plays like those are going to be very important, and a solid set piece foundation does give it to them. It's going to be very difficult for an Italian team with an offence that hasn't been that functional all season to break down a defence as good as Wales's over multiple phases.
Yeah.
But on a first phase, second
phase,
first and second phase, that's where your chances are. And we don't have the team just yet from an Italian point of view, but I imagine young lad Capuozzo will at very least be on the bench, if not starting.
But also guys like Ioane,
Ioane
has to go through him. Like even that try that Capuozzo scored at the end, like the start of it was much like what James Lowe's offer in Ireland, is just short ball for the 11, and the go forward he gives them is stellar, and then you can work from there.
Exactly. So getting Ioane involved off set piece, either deceptively or on a truck up option, or on hopefully at least once on the edge in space.
True.
That's kind of the dream for Italy. They do have finishers out there who can find tries if they can work them into space, and that is the dynamic for their offense. And I mean, once phases 1 and 2 fizzle out, you are going to be looking at a kick most of the time.
True.
That's fine. Playing territory is fine. Trusting their defense is fine. Keeping the game down there, that's all good. But they will need, if they're going to be competitive in this game, to have some joy off set pieces in the offense.
Very true. Very true. It's a shame to not have guys like Riccione at all, and guys who have been such a rock.
The scrum is so good. Like Riccione from Saracens has been awesome all season, and they lost him pre-tournament. But from a foundational point of view, the defense looking good. Like he could be a weapon at scrum if he's as good as he looks at test level. Obviously, that he still has a point to prove. But they do look to have the foundations of a decent side that hopefully can rise to be more competitive in the years to come. It's more promising, and they look better coached than they have in many years.
It's one thing you would say is that it looks like this tenure already has a bit more to it than some of the previous coaching tenures we've seen, where it's like has been one step forward, 2 steps back.
Yeah, although I thought O'Shea did a good job with him too. He just got broken by the job, like they all seem to ultimately.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so I'm rooting for all of these Italian coaches when they come in to go well, but it is just a tough task, which is their charge, where you're facing these juggernauts like Wales and Cardiff. Like it's a nightmare when you're an Ireland fan with aspirations in the tournament. Like much less if you're an Italian coach. It's going to be a tough task for Italy, but here's hoping they're competitive and game for it. And here's hoping they can manage to grab a try out in Cardiff as well. That's one of the aspirations I do have for this side, is to get a little better on the offense. And I think with time it could come. They have better ingredients, better tools, better players at their disposal now than they had before. And the progress of Benetton that has been well charted. I think there are green shoots in Italy for sure. So hopefully they can put it together on this last weekend and do something at least out in Cardiff.
Absolutely.
But, that being said, I don't see it going that way necessarily. I see maybe a bit more competitiveness and a bit more robustness, but I think ultimately Wales will manage to put a bit of gloss on their campaign by running in some scores against Italy.
I'm not thinking 60 points though. I haven't seen that from Italy. I'm not thinking.
I haven't seen it from Wales really.
No,
either.
Indeed, and in years gone by, that would have been the kind of result that you would have seen in Cardiff
40,
on the last weekend.
Maybe 40.
I mean, possibly even less, but I do see.
It's just getting into springtime now. It might be a bit drier.
I certainly see Wales winning the game. I certainly see them finding some tries and putting things together towards the tail end. And guys like Tompkins to come in will be a difference maker. And
bench impact.
They will get their bonus point. But it'll probably be played at a kind of a flat intensity, just given the dead rubber nature of the game. So
Sure.
I'm not totally sold on the idea that it's going to be an absolute hammering. I think, you know, it could be a 5-2 situation, which is obviously a decent game, and that's kind of how I see it playing out.
Okay, yeah, 5-2. I'll say 6-1, but you know, give or take. You know, hopefully it'll go and grab a Capuzzo getting a hat trick this time. Let's see that Ioane getting on the board, which he deserves.
They scored 3 last week against Scotland and had one picked off right as they were on the line.
They did.
So.
Gotta not do that pump fake. I've seen Luke McGrath do it against Toulouse for Leinster as well. When you can't pump fake and then throw it, it's gonna be picked off. Against these top level hungry defenses. But yeah, good luck, Twiddly. Who you got for this one? Let us know in the comments down below. Are you bleeding red, or are you hoping for the Blues to pull a fast one out in Cardiff? Let us all know in that comment down below. But with that, we're going to move on to the next game.
Absolutely.
Thank you for tuning in to the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed what you hear, please like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below as well. We enjoy hearing your opinions too. Thank you.